All right, guys. Good, good evening, and very good evening. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Videography. This is a quick comparison of two lenses, which is Nikon 85mm f 1.2 versus 85mm f 1.8. So what I did, I used the 85 1.8 over Z5, as you can see over here, and I used the 85mm f1.2s on ZF. So both were 24 megapixels, so the resolution is the same and focal length the same, and the aperture, of course, it was different. What I did was I took two sample shots from the f1.2. So this one is at 1.2, other is at 1.8, and then from ZF, from sorry Z5, which is having 85 1.8. So I took one shot from 1.8. So from 85 1.8, I took one shot at 1.8, but from 85 1.2, I took two shots, which is one at 1.2, another at 1.8. So in this way, so 1.8 can be compared with 1.8, and 1.2 can be compared with 1.2. So let's get started. So first off, this is 85 1.2 at 1.2 versus 85 1.8 at 1.8, and I'm going to compare it. So on my right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8, on my left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.2, and when you zoom 100%, as you can see, the bokeh, obviously the bokeh you can first notice at 1.8, it's small, on 1.2 it's big and it's more blurry. The sharpness is over the edges is very fine. Over here on the ground it's very sharp, like both are, and this looks very sharp except the bokeh, which you can see over here, which is very obvious that 1.2 is having more bokeh. But if I take the sample shot of like this now, 85 or 1.2 on the left hand side at 1.8, so both lenses are at 1.8. So let's see. Now the bokeh is almost the same, but still I can see the 1.2 on the left hand side is having more bokeh even at 1.8. The colors, I'm not concerned much about the color because both cameras are having different picture profile at that time, I believe, and even though I used the same settings on both, but still there are lots of other issues which may differ, the colors, rendition, white balance and stuff. But the whole idea is to check of this video right now is to check the sharpness and the bokeh and the quality of the image. Okay, so now let's move to the next. This is 85 1.2 at 1.2, and this is 85 1.8 at 1.8. So this versus, let's compare. So on my left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.2, on my right hand side 85 1.8 at 1.8, and if I compare, uh, both look sharp, really sharp. Actually, for some reason, yep. Of course, the 85 1.2 on the left hand side is creating more separation, as you can clearly see. And if I am switching, now on the left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.8, and 85 on my right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. So both lenses stop down to 1.8, and both lenses are equally sharp. The white balances may differ, but it's the camera. Alright, so this is another sample, 85 1.2. Right. Alright, here we go. So on my left hand side 85 1.2 at 1.2, on my right hand side 85 1.8 at 1.8, and you can see the sharpness because the depth of field on the 1.2 is so less that most of the area are out of focus. That's why you are seeing much sharp. Look at this area, sharp edges. Depth of field is so narrow on this, but the out of focus area on the 85 1.2 is very blurred. And if I switch this with 85 1.2 at 1.8, so now both lenses are at 1.8, and now you can see the depth of field. Now they are equal. The fall off is equal. But still 1.2 is creating more blur even at 1.8. Both lenses are at 1.8, but still 1.2 is creating more shallow depth of field. As you can see, you see this branch over here. That's is basically both are 1.8 still at, and the lens is damn sharp. Actually, 1.2 is very sharp, very sharp. Next, let's move to the next. Okay, here we go. Okay, now I have to switch back. This is okay. All right. Now it's right. Okay, on my left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.2. On my right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. And as you can see over here, the focus was somewhere over there, and due to the depth of field, 85 1.8 is creating more area and focus in compared to 1.2. Due to the hyperfocal distance, the 85 1.2 is very shallow depth of field. The bokeh you can see over here is different. So if I switch to okay, so now both lenses are at 1.8, and the moment I switch to the 1.2 to 1.8, the whole area is in focus due to the hyperfocal distance. See, that's the magic of hyperfocal distance. Because if I was shooting at 1.2, very less area was in focus. And 1.2 is very sharp, more sharper than 1.8. You can see the text. The text over here is much more finer on 1.2, over here much more finer than 1.8. That's why it's very sharp. Let's move to the next. Okay, 1.8, 1.2, 1.2, 1.2. Okay, let's go. So on my left hand side again, 85 1.2 at 1.2. On my right hand side 85 1.8 at 1.8, and as you can clearly see the sharpness. By the way, check the ISO. The shutter speed is the same. Of course, the ISO is less on the 85 1.2 due to the aperture of 1.2. Over here is 1100 ISO, over there is 320 ISO. But sharpness, check the sharpness. You see the micro contrast over here, and it's very sharp 1.2. Actually 85 is really keeping up at 1.8. 85 1.8 is really keeping up at at 1.8. And if I switch to this, alright, now I have to go back. Then on this. Now compare. Okay, on my left hand side 85 1.2 at 1.8, on my right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. Alright, so you can see the sharpness. Look at this. Both are having really great sharp images. Both are equally sharp at 1.8. Move next. So on my left hand side 85 1.2 at 1.8, my right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. And let's go and zoom in. I can't see much of a difference. Actually, if you look at the micro contrast, the stairs over here, it's much more clear than 85 on 85 1.2 rather than at 1.8. Even though 1.8 is really sharp at 1.8, but 85 1.2 at 1.8 is more sharper, is creating more micro contrast. More. Look at these stairs. Look at these stairs. These are not visible much over here, but it's very fine details you can see over there on the stairs. Even this grill over there, this grill is much more finer than over here. I am seeing the major difference on these stairs. These stairs are not visible on 1.8 lens, but on 85 1.2 is very much visible. And both are equal over here. Yep, they are equal. But in some part of the images, by the way, that's moon. As you saw, the moment I took this shot first, 1.2, and then I switched to 1.8. So by the time I took the shot of from the 1.8, the moon set. That's why you see there's gap, not here. So that's another thing. That's the astro thing, actually. All right. Okay. So let's compare. Left hand side 85 1.2 at 1.2, on right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. And of the first thing, the depth of field, you can clearly see the 3D effect over here, because this area is out of focus. Over here it's not much, but this area is also out of focus, which is this one is in focus. So it's very, see over here, shallow depth of field, but the micro contrast on 1.8 is killing. So this area was in focus on 85 1.8, which is over here. Let's shift a little bit back. Of course the rest is out of focus on this, but if I switch, now both lenses are at 1.8. Both lenses are at 1.8. Okay, both lenses are equally sharp. It's just that 85 1.2 was focusing over here and 85 1.8 was focusing over there. So that's the only difference that I can see right now. Okay, that's 1.2. Okay, compare. Okay, so left hand side 85 1.2 at 1.2, right hand side 85 1.8 at 1.8. And the sharpness, as you can see, look, I was focusing on this rock, which is very fine. You can see how sharp the 85 1.2 at 1.2, because this whole plane is very sharp. Is very sharp. And if I come over here, of course, due to the f1.2 aperture, this area on the 1.2 is out of focus, which is not in the case of 1.8. Exactly in focus. Okay. Both are equally sharp in many cases, and if I want to switch to this, now both lenses are sharp at 1.8, but this time it's focus over here, this one is focusing over here. That's my fault, I guess. Yep, that's my fault. But here we go. All right, no, let's compare it again. Okay, now here we go. On the left hand side 85 1.2, add 1.2. On the right hand side is 85 1.8, add 1.8. And it's really hard. 85 1.8 is really sharp over here, much more sharper than 85 1.2. But when it comes to bokeh, it's obvious. The bokeh of 1.2 is very sharp. I mean, more rounded, more out of focus area, as you can see. Cat's eye bokeh. And if I am switching now, 85 on left hand side 85 1.2, add 1.8, and right hand side 85 1.8, add 1.8. And if I'm comparing them side by side, now they are equally sharp. They are equally sharp. They have identical ISO on this, both ZF and Z5, because I used 85 1.2 and ZF, as you can see over here. On the 85 1.8 I was using Z5. And when it comes to bokeh is still even at 1.8. The 85 1.2 is clearing more bokeh even at 1.8. So that is really strange for me. Both lenses are 1.8, but 85 1.2 is creating more blur. So this is a quick comparison of both 85 1.2 and 85 1.8 lens side by side. I will share with you another portrait session, because this is just journal shots. I did some mistakes. As you saw, my focus points was shifted, so especially in these images, my focus point was shifted, so I wasn't able to compare this properly. But over here, this was very much fine, equally side by side. Now I will share with you the portrait session of the same. I used two lenses, these two lenses, 85 1.8 at 1.8 and 85 1.2 at 1.2 and also at 1.8. So I'm going to show you next the same test which I showed you, but over the portrait, and then you can easily justify which lens you have to go with. Alright guys, so this is the portrait comparison of 85 1.2 S lens versus 85 1.8 S lens, and I did the same thing. I took two shots from 85 1.2 S lens at 1.2 and another at 1.8, and then I took one shot from 85 1.8 at 1.8. So you will see the three shots and of the same model in the different scenarios, lights and shadows, and we are going to compare them side by side, all of them. So okay, so let's start from the beginning. This is the first shot taken from 85 1.2 at 1.2 versus 85 1.8 at 1.8. and let's compare them. So on the left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.2, on the right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. And right from the bat you can see the sharpness. The camera took the autofocus over here on the eye, but over here it's on the nose and the skin, but the depth of field is very shallow, very shallow. And if I'm switching to this, now you will see 85 on the left hand side, 85 1.2 at 1.8, and on the right hand side 85 1.8 at 1.8. Both lenses are equally sharp, identically sharp, literally identically sharp. But the bokeh on the 1.2 at 1.8 is more, as you saw earlier in the sample shots that I took of the various roads and mosque. So that's what it is. So another sample shot. So this is the same on the left hand side 85 1.2 at 1.2, and on the right hand side 85 1.8 at 1.8. And let's go 100%. Alright, as you can see, the 85 1.2 is razor sharp, literally, at 1.2 in the backlit situation. Look at this. Of course 85 1.8, it's also razor sharp, but it's a 1.8, so you have more area in focus in compared to 1.2. And as you can see, the bokeh over here, which is far more than in compared to 1.8. So the fall off over here at 1.2 is much more than 1.8, obviously at 1.2, but the sharpness and the micro contrast on both lenses are exceptional. So if I switch this with this, now both lenses are at 1.8, 85 1.2 at 1.8, and 85 1.8 was already 1.8. Even at 1.8, you see the bokeh over here, the earrings of the model. Even 85 1.2 at 1.8 have is blurring more than 85 1.8 at 1.8. All right, next is this. Left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.2, and right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. And if I compare, due to more area in focus, you will see this very sharp across the frame, but the micro contrast on both lenses is exceptional. This looks way softer, a little soft over here. Okay, if I'm comparing this, now both lenses are at 1.8. Now 85 1.2 over here at 1.8, this is 85 1.8 at 1.8. They look equal now. And as far as blur concerned, 85 1.2 is blurring more actually. Look over here. Both are at 1.8, but on the left hand side is more blur than right hand side, even at 1.8. So that's an advantage actually if you go for this 85 1.2 lens. Alright, so another shot on the left hand side, 85 1.2 at 1.2. Over here the focus was on the shoulder, so not a good example to go with. Yep. Next. I missed that one. Alright. So on left hand side 85 1.2 add 1.2. On right hand side 85 1.8 add 1.8. And of course due to the f1.2 there is less area in focus in compared to 85 1.0, but the micro contrast on 85 1.8, it's damn, it's more contrasty than 85 1.2 in my opinion. 85 1.2 is more warmer, 85 1.8 is more cooler. Okay, and if I go with this lens here, so now both lenses are at 1.8, and if you look, the fall off from eye to the ear, from eyelashes to the ear, is more on 1.2. Next, on left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.2, on right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. And I mean, I can't see of a difference other than the bokeh, because sharpness is there in both lenses are equally sharp. There is not much fringing at all actually on both lenses. There is no fringing or chromatic aberration as you can see. Okay, sounds good. And now both lenses are at 1.8. There is not much of a difference actually, except that 85 1.8 is more punchy and more contrasting and more cooler than 85 1.2. Let's jump on this example. As you can, the purge. So 85 1.2 at 1.2 on my left hand side, on my right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. It's more 3D effect creating. And of course the blur is there. Now both lenses are at 1.8 and they are equally sharp. I can't see much of a difference. Both lenses are equally sharp at 1.8. Let's jump on this example. So 85 1.2 at 1.2, and on the right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. I mean, I can't see of a difference much, other than depth of field area. I mean, there is, because see over here it's in focus is out of focus because of depth of field. That's all. Now if I switch this with this, now both lenses are at 1.8. So if I come over here, okay, nope, nope. Both lenses are equally sharp. Both lenses are carrying different character, to be very honest. That's really, really good and strange at the same time. On my left hand side 85 1.2 at 1.2, on my right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8, and high autofocus was tracking and stuff. And all right, so let's resume. There was a technical difficulty I faced, so let's resume now. So this is 85 1.2 at 1.2, and this is 85 1.8 at 1.8. Let's compare. As you can see, on my left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.2, on my right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8, and it's very hard to tell. Of course, the 85 1.8 is more punchier due to the output, but 85 1.2 is creating more blur. So if I switch with this, now both lenses are at 1.8, and as you can see, they are nearly equal. Like literally, they are equal at 1.8, but the blur which create by 1.2 is more on 1.2 than 1.8, and you can see from here. So 1.2 is creating more blur on even at 1.8, despite the aperture is 1.8. So that's it. A few more shots and then we're going to wrap up. So let's go with this one. Compare. On my left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.2. My right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. And right now they look nearly identical, except the depth of field. Look, they are, model is moving within the depth of field back and forth, so some part are in focus, some part are not in focus. And if I'm switching this with this, now both lenses are at 1.8. Both lenses are at 1.8, and as you can see, other than one temperature, one lens is cooler, one lens is warmer. Besides, there's not much of a difference. Now this is last. All right. Compare. On my left hand side is 85 1.2 at 1.2, and on my right hand side is 85 1.8 at 1.8. By the way, I just noticed a little bit of chromatic aberration, but I believe it's very well controlled. And now both lenses are 1.8. Now both lenses are at 1.8, and that's it, guys. I mean, it's very difficult to tell which lens is better, to be very honest. Both lenses are equally good. Both lenses. Of course, 1.8 is having more power in hand when it comes to autofocus area, where even if you stop down from 1.2 to 1.8, still that lens able to blur more in compared to 85 1.8s. So that's the big advantage goes to 85 1.2 LEDs. So that's a side by side comparison.